There's a major flaw with the 40% rule. But before we get there, I have to ask you, have you ever heard of David Goggins and this Navy SEAL 40% rule? Well, if you've heard of it, we're going to play a review session. If you haven't, then watch this clip and you'll be able to get it in his own words.
I believe that most human beings are only living at about 40% of their capability. So the mind has a governor, like a car. If you're driving a car and the car has a governor on it, the car may say 130 miles an hour, but the governor is set for 91. Once that governor sets in, you get to 91, that car starts doing this. The car wants to go. The car wants to go, but that fucking factory said, we're not going past 91. We have a factory, a nice governor in our brain, and it's a survival mechanism. It protects us from pain and suffering.
Stick around to the end of the video for the self-capacity formula. Stay hard, game changers. So what's the major problem with the 40% rule? It establishes the fact that your brain tells you that you must stop or you should stop, but your body has more to give. But then we don't know how much more to give. And if we listen to David Goggins, you'll end up like his origin story about how he got started. He wanted to run in this Badwater, Death Valley ultra marathon, but to do that, he had to qualify. And he had to run 100 miles in a 24-hour period. So he shows up with a lawn chair and saltine crackers and some water and just his wife to help him run this 100-mile race in San Diego. And he ended up with broken bones in his feet. He ended up laying in a bathtub, urinating blood. People telling me he should go to the hospital. Well, if you got a life and you can't do the David Goggins 4,000% over the 40% rule, then what do? What level of exertion should you have so you can play again the next day, so you can show up the next day for your family, your friends, your job, and all those things? Now, you may have already figured out that we came up with this 47% rule. It started out as a 100% rule, but then I Googled it, and Jack Canfield of Chicken Soup of the Soul fame had already come up with this 100% rule. And then I started thinking about David Goggins and his 100% and bathtubs and urinating blood and hospitals and all those things and broken bones. I'm like, I can't do that. You can't do that. Nobody should be doing that. But what level of exertion should we give? What effort should we give to build our capacity and expand our lives and grow more muscles and extend our emotional intelligence into these new realms that we've never gotten to before? How can we take 2 steps forward and 1 step back? How can we do this to expand it without crashing ourselves, without putting ourselves in the hospital, without being so sore that we have to take the next day off and skip the gym or those type of things? How can we not fast too much and just fast just enough to get the autophagy and the proper benefits that we need for all these things? I really started playing with this percentage rule, and it happened to be my favorite number is 47. So we ended up on this 47%. But let me explain really what happened. I'm in Miami Beach, working at the Fontainebleau, general manager of a celebrity chef restaurant, just at the prime of my career, the peak of my career. And if you've ever been to Miami, you know that the percentage of crime is double that of the national standard or the average and all those things. It's a rough and tumble place. So I decided to do a lifelong thing and take jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I'm honored to say I've got to learn from the Valente brothers and what they offer there at their dojo and in North Miami. I took it a little too far. 6 days a week, 15 hours, sometimes on my days off, AM and PM classes. And then when I started sparring, it's not like you're in the gym where you're like, oh, I'm at, okay, I get to stop and I get to put the weight back and I get to put it down and those things. When you're sparring in jiu-jitsu, there's somebody actually trying to choke you. And what happens is you have to keep going for the entire 5 minutes that this is happening. And if you're tired or sweaty, worn out, fatigued, it doesn't matter. You have to keep going. You have to survive the event. You have to keep going. But how do you survive without overexerting yourself? Well, you have to find this balance between 40% where you tap out and say, I'm done, I can't do it, and 100% where you're going to end up in the hospital and go too far, or lose your breath, or pass out, or those type of things. And so we came up and settled on the 47% rule, because here's one trick to this 47%. Today's 47% is tomorrow's 40%. so you can continue to expand and expand and expand. Not on a David Goggins level or a Navy SEAL level where you push yourself to the point through Hell Week where you can't do much more than what you're already doing, and then you end up in a hospital or taking days off, skipping, and you losing your momentum. Anytime you have to stop because you've overexerted yourself on the day before, then you went too far, and now you've broken your momentum that you're building by doing what you do, whether it's intermittent fasting or something to do with health or workout, running, whatever your jam is, doesn't matter. It could be your level of composure that you remain in a stressful situation. This self-capacity formula that takes to expand your capacity past your 40% can be applied to every single area of life. It can be cascaded across all 5 domains of your life, which are health span, your money, your econ. It can be expanded to your personal growth, your relationships, and number 5, the rest of your life. 37% you could be a quitter, 38% a quitter, 40% your brain's telling you your body's had enough, but your body always has more to give. And I also say that when your brain tells you that you need to stop at the 40% mark, that your brain has more to give. Your capacity has more to give. Your emotional intelligence has more to give. There's always more to give. And you can start asking yourself these rational questions. Where's the breakdown come? Why am I giving up here? Why am I stopping here? Why am I selling myself short? You can always also, another high achiever on the same realm, this what we call stage 1 booster rocket that fires off every single day in this survival-based change and these things. If you don't know what these things are, either there's a past video to watch or there's future videos coming to explain all these things. But one of my favorites is Kobe Bryant. Now, I had the honor to be living in LA the day that Kobe passed away. And I went to church that night. I was on a Sunday. It was one of the most impactful sermons I ever experienced at Mosaic Church or any church I've ever gone to my entire life. And what I want to say, though, about Kobe is that when he decided on something, there was no negotiation. There was never a rationalization that he deserved a cheat day, he deserved a day off. He never had that negotiation with himself, ever. That's how he became the Black Mamba, is how he became Kobe Bryant. He did get there on hard work. He did get there by going past 40%. Dare I say, sometimes past 47%. But when he was on the court and he was healthy, even unhealthy, he was on lock. He knew what he was there to do. And we put these people like Goggins and Jordan and Kobe and LeBron and all these people that we say that have won the genetic lottery, that they're better than us because, or maybe like Elon because he's a genius, but he's also on the spectrum at the same time. You know, we have all these things. We put people on pedestals, but we don't realize that we have the capacity inside of each one of us to reach heights that were never dreamed of or expected or we thought of before. And you can do that by pushing past this 40% rule. Now, I will say this too, that different people have different set points for where their brain tells them to stop. They have different capacities. Some people, and it may be if it's a physical thing that is related to their pain threshold. If somebody may be a HSP or a highly sensitive person that has a lower tolerance for pain, their 40% level may be lower than somebody, but that doesn't mean that it can't be expanded. You can expand that. You totally can expand it. Somebody else may have a high tolerance for pain, and so they're the ones playing linebacker, flying through the air, tackling other people in the sub-zero, freezing weather of the Green Bay Packers. And that may not be you. Somebody may have the capacity to be an ultra endurance runner like Goggins is, or like Rich Roll, or the name goes on and on, or the Olympics happen to be going on right now in Paris. And those people may have a capacity, a higher capacity, but most of that capacity has come through the training, has really come through the training. I don't want to debunk the 10,000 hours piece right now. We can later, because that's really more about setting your mindset than the physical aspect of it. But in having belief in yourself to be able to do that. But right now, I'm giving you permission to go to 47%. I'm giving you permission to push past the point where your brain tells you to stop so you can push further. You can go 47%. And even if you go 47% and tomorrow, and that's considered 2 steps forward, you take 1 step back, your new 40% is 43.5% from what it was yesterday. And you can keep expanding. There's other principles that explain this, like Kaizen, the art of continuous improvement, that's been made famous in other books like Atomic Habits by James Clear, or we use it in restaurants by getting incrementally better every single day. You can use that and cascade it to every aspect of your life. So the 47% rule is what's possible, and it is the answer to the problem that's left open-ended about the 40% rule, which is, what level of exertion do you go past 40% and still be able to show up at a high capacity the next day, that afternoon, that morning, whatever it is. 47% rule. That's your answer. So now we need to go to the self-capacity formula to deliver on the promise that we gave you earlier. Self-capacity. The formula is this: the density times frequency times bandwidth equals your self-capacity. It really boils down to your bandwidth. There's either stress or fear. It's going to be the stress of the density or the frequency of the stress or fear that can overwhelm the current bandwidth that you have. A lot of times we use the example of stress when it comes up, like a bill needs to be paid, or there's all these, like the stress of my mom passing away. It carried so much weight, the weight of the world, to be there for my dad, my family, and all those things, but at the same time grieve the passing of my mom. And moms are a big deal. A really big deal. So the density of, so when something comes along, when there's a health scare or somebody passes or the loss of a job or the loss of a relationship, some of the impact of life can carry with it large amounts of density. Or on the other hand, frequency of things, all these little small things that are adding up, right? You've got more to do in today than the time you have left in the day, or the more time or less time in your life to do the things you want to accomplish, or a midlife crisis. So that can put you in a tailspin, so to speak. And that can overwhelm your bandwidth. And then you become hijacked, or you become overwhelmed by all the things that need to happen. And you don't even realize that it's happening, but now you're complaining, or you're screaming, or you're yelling at somebody, or whatever you do when you're emotionally hijacked by the surprise or those type of things. So if you take and combine the fact that you have self-awareness for where you are in the moment and that your bandwidth is being overwhelmed, you can use the 47% rule to increase your ability to absorb the density or the frequency of the stressors or the fears that come into your life, so you can then expand your capacity 7% at a time. So you can have a larger bandwidth and you can handle more stress, more fear, more life. You can handle that. And the more you build your capacity, the more capacity you have and the calmer you are, and you can stay in your true nature, in these state sets that we really call about the bliss state sets that are not fear driven, like destruction, constriction, construction. You can move into a beautiful state, move into expansive state. An old golfer back in the day, in the 80s, Lee Trevino, had this quote that I love. He said, the secret to golf is to take your range game to the course. And he said, I don't know how to tell you to do it, but that's the secret to golf. Well, you know what? That's the secret of life. Take your range game, your practice game, out into the real world. But what we do is we can tell you how to do it. And that's by slowly building your self-capacity through the 47% rule. And that's how you can build the capacity to take what you practice in private out into public.